Hello, this is Abby from OllieHolly.com. In today's video, I will be showing you how to crochet this cute little ghost. This pattern is one of my favorite Halloween patterns to make because the ghosts work up really quickly and make a great last-minute gift or decoration for your home. If you'd like to follow along with a written pattern, you'll find the free pattern on my blog or the printable PDF in my shop. Both will be linked in the description box down below. Here are the materials you will need to create your ghost. You will need some bright white yarn, so you can use any type of yarn you want as long as it's easy to work with for you. You will also need a crochet hook that works with the thickness of the yarn you choose. For the purposes of this video, I will be using blue yarn instead of white yarn to crochet my ghost, just so that the camera can pick up the stitches a little bit better. Now, to determine the hook size you need for your yarn for Amigurumi, simply hold your hook up against your yarn and you'll want the thickness of the yarn to be roughly the same as the thickness of your hook. I'll also be using a stitch marker, which is optional but definitely recommended, some darning needles, and I'm using these to sew pieces together, but I'll also be using the thinner one for some embroidery, a pair of scissors, some pins, polyester fiber fill stuffing, and for the eyes, you can either use safety eyes or simply embroider them in with some embroidery floss. For the mouth, you can either cut out a piece of felt to glue them on or simply embroider them in just like with the eyes. You should also have some fabric glue on hand to help secure down your embroidery or to glue the felt. It's also a good idea to have some toothpicks on hand to use with the glue. And here are the abbreviations that will be used in this pattern. I also want to note here that the single crochet method that I'm going to be using in this video is a yarn under, yarn over single crochet. If you want to learn more about the different ways you can make a single crochet, I have a full video where I compare the 4 different methods, and I'll link it in the description box down below. Now, without further ado, let's get started. To start, we're going to be making the body of the ghost. We will be starting with a magic circle, and I will be showing you how I like to make my magic circle, but feel free to use your preferred method. For the method I use, I'm starting with the yarn tail in my palm and I'm holding it down with my thumb. Then I'm taking the working end of the yarn and I'm wrapping it around the back of my index and middle fingers like so. Then I'm crossing it over the yarn tail in the front to form an X. Next, I'm flipping my hands over, and using my pinky, I'm going to secure the working end down. I'm then going to pick up my hook, insert the hook under the right strand and over the left. Then I'm pulling the left strand under the right, and I'm turning the hook up towards me to create a loop on my hook. And finally, I'm going to insert my hook under the working end of the yarn, and I'm pulling a loop up through the loop on my hook. And this is how I like to make my magic circle. Now, if you need a little bit more help with the magic circle, I have a full video tutorial and I'll link it in the description box down below. In round 1, we're going to be making 6 single crochet stitches into the magic circle. Start by inserting your hook into the magic circle, making sure that your hook is under both the circle and the yarn tail. If you're working the yarn under yarn over method like me, wrap the working end of the yarn under the hook going from the front to the back and pull up your first loop. There should now be 2 loops on your hook. Then yarn over, which means you're wrapping the working end of your yarn over the hook going from the back to the front. Pull this loop through the 2 loops on your hook to complete your first single crochet. Let's see that again. Insert your hook into your magic circle, yarn under, so you're wrapping your yarn under the hook going from the front to the back, and pull a loop up. Then yarn over, so you're wrapping your yarn over the hook going from the back to the front, and pull it through the 2 loops on your hook. Then again, insert, yarn under to pull a loop up, yarn over, and pull it through the 2 loops on your hook, so that's 3. Now we just need to make 3 more single crochet, So that's 4, 5, and 6. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And now that I have all 6 of my stitches, I'm going to pull on the yarn tail to close up that magic circle in the center. Before I start the next round, I'm going to trim the yarn tail from the magic circle just so that it doesn't get in the way when I'm working the next round. In round 2 of the body, we're going to be increasing into each stitch all the way around. So that simply means that we're going to be working 2 single crochet stitches into the tops of each stitch from the previous round. Insert your hook into the first stitch and pick up your first single crochet. If you are using a stitch marker, mark the first stitch of each round to help keep track of your rounds. To increase, insert your hook back into the same stitch that you worked your first stitch into and make another single crochet. So we're just going to continue increasing into each stitch all the way around. So into the next stitch, I'm picking up my first single crochet, then inserting my hook back into the same stitch I just worked that stitch into to pick up my second single crochet. You can pause here to continue increasing into each stitch all the way around. By the time you're done with round 2, you should have a total of 12 stitches. In round 3, we're going to be alternating between working 1 single crochet, then increasing in the next, and we're repeating that set all the way around. So that's 1, increase, 1, increase, 1, increase, and so on. So into that first stitch, I'm going to work a single crochet. Then into that second stitch, we're going to be working an increase. So that's 1, and back into the same stitch, 2. Then we're just going to repeat this set again. So single crochet into the next stitch, then increase. Then again, single crochet, and increase. You can pause here to work the rest of round 3, and I'll meet you at the beginning of round 4. By the time you're done with round 3, you should have a total of 18 stitches. In round 4, alternate between working a single crochet, increase in the next, then single crochet again. And we're going to be repeating this set a total of 6 times all the way around. So what that looks like is single crochet, increase, single crochet. Single crochet, increase, single crochet, and so on. So single crochet, increase in the next, then another single crochet. Then we're just going to repeat that set, so single crochet, increase, then single crochet. You can pause here to work the rest of round 4, and I will meet you at the beginning of round 5. Just remember you are alternating between working 1 single crochet, increasing in the next, then 1 more single crochet. There should be 2 single crochet stitches between each increase. And by the time you are done with this round, you should have a total of 24 stitches. In round 5, we're going to be alternating between working 3 single crochet, then increasing in the next. So that's 1, 2, 3, increase, 1, 2, 3, increase, and so on. So that's 1, 2, 3, then increase into the next. Again, so that's 1, 2, 3, and increase. Pause here to work the rest of round 5, and I'll meet you at the beginning of round 6. By the time you are done with round 5, you should have a total of 30 stitches. In round 6, alternate between working 9 single crochet, then increase. And we're going to be repeating this set a total of 3 times all the way around. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, then increase. And we're going to be repeating that a total of 3 times all the way around. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Then into that next stitch, we're going to work an increase. And now repeat that again. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and increase. Pause here to work the remaining set, and I will meet you at the beginning of round 7. By the time you are done with round 6, you should have a total of 33 stitches. In round 7, alternate between working 5 single crochet, increase, then 5 single crochet again. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, increase, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we're just going to be repeating this set a total of 3 times. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, increase, then 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. You can pause here to work the remaining 2 sets, and remember that you are alternating between working 5 single crochet, increase, then 5 more single crochet. There should be 10 single crochet stitches between each increase. And by the time you are done with round 7, you should have a total of 36 stitches. In the next 2 rounds, which is rounds 8 and 9, work 1 single crochet into each stitch all the way around. And because we are not increasing in these rounds, your stitch count for each round should remain at 36 stitches. Pause here to work rounds 8 and 9, and I will meet you at the beginning of round 10. In round 10, alternate between working 11 single crochet, then increase. Repeat that set a total of 3 times all the way around. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, then increase. Pause here to repeat the set 2 more times, and I will meet you at the beginning of round 11. By the time you are done with round 10, you should have a total of 39 stitches. In the next 2 rounds, which is rounds 11 and 12, work 1 single crochet into each stitch all the way around. Your stitch count for rounds 11 and 12 should remain at 39 stitches per round. Pause here to work rounds 11 and 12, and I will meet you at the beginning of round 13. After finishing rounds 11 and 12, I'm going to insert my safety eyes into my piece before I continue on to round 13. I'm going to pull my hook up and remove my hook to keep the loop from unraveling. Then I'm going to locate the front of the ghost. Where the stitch marker is going to be the back of the piece. Once I've located the front, I'm going to count 8 rounds down. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And for my ghost, I want my eyes to sit between rounds 8 and 9. So I'm going to insert my first eye into any space between rounds 8 and 9, just as long as it's towards the front of the piece. And between the 2 eyes, I want a space that is about 4 to 5 stitches apart. And you can obviously play around with the positioning of the eyes here. It's really all up to your personal preferences how you like to space out your eyes. Once you're happy with the position of the eyes, you can snap the backings in. The backing of these oval eyes were surprisingly easy to snap in, so I didn't have to use my eye snapper tool. But I do highly recommend it if you struggle to snap safety eyes in. And once both eyes are in, we can continue on to round 13. In round 13, alternate between working 6 single crochets, increase, then 6 more single crochets. Repeat this set a total of 3 times all the way around. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and increase in the next. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. You can pause here to work the set 2 more times, and remember you're alternating between working 6 single crochets, increase, then 6 more single crochet. There should be 12 single crochet stitches between each increase. And by the time you are done with round 13, you should have a total of 42 stitches. For rounds 14 to 19, so that's the next 6 rounds, work 1 single crochet into each stitch all the way around. Pause here to work the next 6 rounds, and I will meet you at the beginning of round 20. The stitch count of each round should remain at 42 stitches per round. After finishing rounds 14 to 19, this is what your piece should look like. For round 20, we're going to start making the frills at the bottom of the ghost. And for the entirety of this round, we will be working into the front loops of each stitch. If you take a look at the tops of each stitch, you'll notice that each stitch has 2 loops and together they look like a little V. The front loop is the loop that is closest to you. So to access the front loop, you will need to insert your hook into the front of the stitch and out the center, like so. In round 20, we're going to be working a set of stitches that will become a peak. And we'll be repeating each set a total of 7 times all the way around for a total of 7 peaks. So to start round 20, insert your hook into the first front loop and work a single crochet. Now that's going to be our first stitch, so I'm going to be marking it. Into the next front loop, we're going to be working a half double crochet. So yarn over, insert into the front loop of the next stitch, yarn over again and pull a loop up. You should have 3 loops on your hook. Now yarn over one more time and pull it through all 3 of the loops on your hook. Next, we're going to be working a set of stitches into the same stitch. So into this front loop, we're going to make a double crochet, chain 2, then another double crochet. So yarn over, insert into the next front loop, yarn over and pull a loop up. There should be 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over again and pull it through the first 2 loops on your hook. Then yarn over one last time and pull it through the remaining 2 loops on your hook. So that's our first double crochet. Next, chain 2. So yarn over, pull through, that's 1, and again, yarn over and pull through, 2. Then we're making another double crochet into the same front loop we worked the first double crochet into. So yarn over, insert into the same front loop, yarn over and pull a loop up. Yarn over again and pull it through the first 2 loops on your hook. Then yarn over one last time and pull it through the remaining 2 loops on your hook. Then into the next front loop, work a half double crochet. So yarn over, insert your hook into the next front loop, yarn over and pull a loop up. Then yarn over one more time and pull it through all 3 loops on your hook. Into the next front loop, work a single crochet. And finally, to finish up our first peak, work a slip stitch into the next front loop. So insert your hook into the next front loop, yarn over and pull up a loop through the loop on your hook. So this is our first peak done, and I will work through one more set with you. So into this next stitch, insert your hook into that front loop and work a single crochet. Into the next front loop, work a half double crochet. Then into the next front loop, start by working a double crochet. Chain 2, then work another double crochet into the same front loop you worked that first double crochet into. Work a half double crochet into the next front loop. Then work a single crochet into the next front loop. And finally, work a slip stitch into the next front loop to finish up the second set of stitches. Pause here to work the remaining 5 peaks, or if you need to rewash the first 2 peaks, you can jump to this timestamp here. In round 21, we'll be working into the back loops that we did not work into in the previous round. So that's this band right here. For round 21, alternate between working 5 single crochet then decreasing, repeating that a total of 6 times all the way around. To get started, insert your hook into the first back loop, then work your first single crochet. So that's 1. Insert into the next back loop. 2, 3, 4, and 5. With invisible decreases, you will usually need to insert your hook into the front loops only of the next 2 stitches. But because we only have 1 loop to work into, just insert your hook into the next 2 stitches directly. So I'm inserting my hook into the next loop, going from the front to the back. Then I'm turning my hook this way to insert into the second stitch from the front to the back as well. Then I'm going to yarn under and pull a loop up through those 2 back loops. Then yarn over and I'm pulling it through the 2 loops on my hook. So that's my first set done, and now I'm going to continue working the 5 single crochet, then decreasing. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and decrease. Pause here to work the rest of round 21, and I'll meet you at the beginning of round 22. By the time you are done with round 21, your stitch count for the round should be down to 36 stitches. In round 22, we're going to keep decreasing, but instead of only working into the front loop or back loops like in the previous 2 rounds, work into the stitches as you normally would. In this round, we'll be alternating between working 2 single crochet, decrease, then another 2 single crochet, and we'll be repeating the set a total of 6 times all the way around. So that's 1, 2, and for the invisible decrease, just insert your hook into the front loops of the next 2 stitches. So insert your hook into the front of the first stitch and out the center. Then insert into the front of the second stitch and out the center. Pull a loop up through those 2 front loops, then yarn over and pull through the 2 loops on your hook. So that's 1, 2, decrease, and we have to make 2 more single crochet. So that's 1, and 2. Let's make 1 more set together. So that's 1, 2, decrease, then 1, and 2. And now just work this set 4 more times. Pause here to work the rest of this round, and I'll meet you at the beginning of round 23. Just remember that you're alternating between working 2 single crochet, decrease, then 2 more single crochet. There should be 4 single crochet stitches between each decrease. And by the time you are done with round 22, you should have a total of 30 stitches. Before starting round 23, I'm going to start stuffing my ghost lightly. I like to loosen up the fiber fill stuffing first before I compact it in layers, just because I find that this helps to make it a little less clumpy. At this point, I also don't like to stuff it too fully if I still have a lot of crocheting left to do, because I don't want to crochet the fiber fill into my stitches accidentally. In round 23, we're going to be alternating between working 3 single crochet and decreasing, repeating that a total of 6 times all the way around. So that's 1, 2, 3, decrease. Then again 1, 2, 3, decrease. Pause here to continue working the rest of round 23, and I'll meet you at the beginning of round 24. You should have a total of 24 stitches by the time you're done with round 23. In round 24, alternate between working 1 single crochet and decreasing, and we'll be repeating that set a total of 8 times all the way around. So that's single crochet, and decrease. And we're just going to repeat that again. So single crochet, decrease. Pause here to continue working the rest of round 24, and I'll meet you at the beginning of round 25, which is our final round. By the time you're done with round 24, you should have a total of 16 stitches. Before continuing on to the final round, you can stuff your ghost fully. I personally like to really pack in the stuffing for a firmer toy that holds its shape better. I just make sure to not overstuff it and that the stuffing isn't peeking through between stitches. Also, make sure you are pushing some stuffing into the edges of the bottom circle where the body and the bottom meet. In round 25, we're going to be decreasing 8 times all the way around. And by the time you are done with this round, you should have a total of 8 stitches. So that's our first decrease. Second decrease. Third decrease. Fourth. Fifth. Sixth. Seventh. And our final decrease. And now I'm going to fasten off, making sure to leave a long enough tail to close the hole up, so roughly 6 to 8 inches. So I'm just cutting the yarn and pulling my hook up to fasten off. And before I close the hole, I'm actually going to stuff my ghost a little bit more. And at this point, because the opening is so small, I'm just going to use the back of my hook to push the fiberfill stuffing in. To close up the hole, start by threading your yarn tail onto your darning needle. Then insert your needle into the front loop of each stitch. As you go through each stitch, pull on the yarn tail slightly to help cinch up the hole gradually. Once you've gone through each stitch around the opening, you can weave the tail under the center stitches, then weave the tail into the body to further secure it. I'm leading the tail out of the back of the body, and I like to sew over one more stitch to make sure that the tail is really secure. And finally, I'm just cutting the yarn tail as close to the body as possible, then squishing to hide the tail. At this point, I'm also going to roll my ghost between my palms to shape it slightly. Squishing and rolling my finished amigurumi items is something that I find really helps to define their shape and makes them look a lot better. Next, let's make the arms. To start, we will need to make a magic circle. And just like before, if you have a preferred method, feel free to use it. But here's a refresher on how I like to make my magic circle. Starting with the yarn tail in my palm, I'm taking the working end of the yarn and wrapping it around my index and middle fingers, crossing it over the tail, then down the back of my hand. With the back of my hand facing me, I'm inserting my hook under the right strand and over the left, pulling the left strand under the right, then turning my hook up to form a loop. Then I'm inserting under the working end of the yarn and pulling it through the loop on my hook. For round 1 of the arm, work 6 single crochets into the magic circle. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. After finishing round 1, pull on the yarn tail to cinch up the magic circle to close that circle fully. And before I continue on to round 2, I just want to cut the yarn tail from the magic circle just so it's a little easier to work around. In round 2 of the arms, we're going to work the following set twice. We're going to start by increasing, then work 2 single crochet. So what that looks like is increase 1, 2, increase 1, 2. So we're increasing into that first stitch. So that's 1, back into the same stitch, increase. Next, we're going to work 2 single crochet, so that's 1, into the next, 2. And now we're just going to repeat that set again. So increase into the next stitch, then 2 single crochet, so 1, and into that final stitch, 2. In round 3, work 1 single crochet into each stitch all the way around. Your stitch count for this round should remain at 8 stitches. Pause here to work round 3 and I'll meet you at the beginning of round 4. In round 4, alternate between working an increase then 3 single crochet, and we'll be repeating that a total of 2 times. So that's increase, 1, 2, 3, increase, 1, 2, 3. And you should have a total of 10 stitches by the time you're done with this round. So that's increase, and I'm just going to mark the first stitch right there. Then 1, 2, and 3. Then again, increase, one, two, 3. In round 5, which is the final round for the arms, work 1 single crochet into each stitch all the way around. Your stitch count should remain at 10 stitches when you're done. Pause here to work round 5 and I'll meet you at the end of this round. Once you are done with the arm, you can cut your yarn tail and fasten off. And because I will be using the yarn tail to sew the arms to the body, I'm leaving a slightly longer tail, roughly 10 to 12 inches long. You will also need to make a second arm, so pause here to work the second arm. The timestamp to rewatch round 1 of the arm will be on the screen. To assemble the ghost, start by pinning both arms to the side of the body. For the positioning of the arms, I'm going to use my eyes as a point of reference. I'm pinning the arm so that the top of the arm starts one round below the eye. Then I'm counting 3 stitches out from the eyes to determine where I want the arms to be. And now I'm going to pin the second arm in place. And I'm counting 3 stitches out from the eyes and positioning the top of the arm one round below the bottom of the eyes. As you are pinning, feel free to make adjustments so that both sides can match up a little better and look more balanced. Once you are happy with the placement of the arms, you can sew them in place. Thread one of the yarn tails onto a darning needle, then locate the stitch on the body that is directly below where the yarn tail is. And you're going to sew 1 stitch across the body and pull it through. Next, find the next stitch on the arm and insert your needle through the top of the stitch, going from the front to the back, and pull through. Pause here to repeat these steps all the way around the arm until it is fully sewn onto the body. You do not have to stuff the arm before you completely sew the opening closed. I will meet you after the arm is sewn to the body to show you how to hide the tail. Once the arm is fully sewn onto the body, weave the tail into the next stitch of the arm and out the back of the ghost. Sew the other arm to the body, and once that arm is attached, weave the tail from the second arm out the back of the ghost and make sure it is coming out of the same stitch space as the first tail. With the 2 yarn tails, tie a tight double knot. Trim off any excess yarn tails, then stab the knot into the body and squish to hide. Now that the arms are sewn on, I'm going to embroider some details to the face. For the mouth, I'm opting to just embroider a smile between the eyes with some dark gray embroidery floss. However, you can also cut out some felt and fabric glue it onto the face for the mouth. With a strand of embroidery floss on my darning needle, I'm going to insert my needle into any space on the body, and I'm leading the needle out between the eyes where I want the mouth to start. And I'm pulling the needle almost all the way through, but I'm making sure to leave a short tail here. Then I'm going to insert my needle back into the face where I want the mouth to end. And I'm threading the needle out the same spot the other tail is coming out of. So right now it looks like a short line, but I'm going to use my needle to pull the middle down slightly to create a subtle little smile. And with bigger pieces, I will usually embroider the curve down, so basically using the embroidery floss to create a staple in the center. But because this line is so short, I'm going to just use some fabric glue to glue the mouth down, just so that I can make a more subtle curve. Using a clean toothpick, pick up a small bead of fabric glue. Carefully apply it to the back side of the mouth. Then, working quickly, use the other end of the toothpick to push the smile down and adjust the line into a subtle smile. It's best to not play around with the glue too much, otherwise the glue will not dry clear. So once you are happy with the positioning of the mouth, just leave it alone. If you notice some big globs of glue, you can use a clean toothpick to scrape it off gently before it dries. Then, just allow the glue to dry fully before you touch the mouth again. This next part is optional, but I like to embroider a small line of pink beside each eye to create a blush cheek look for all of my amigurumi. So while the glue on the mouth is drying, I'm going to embroider the blush in. For the blush, I'm using some pink yarn and I'm just embroidering a short line beside the eye, similar to how I did the mouth. To make the blush a little puffier, I'm sewing one stitch across to create a short pink line, and I'm having the needle come out of the same spot that the yarn is coming out of. Then I'm going to wrap the yarn over the short pink line a few times to create these puffy lines that I think just looks a little cuter and is a bit more textured. Just make sure that when you're wrapping the yarn around the strand, you're not overlapping the previous parts that you have just wrapped. Insert your needle back into the face and thread it out the other side of the face to work on the other cheek. Once you are done with the second side, you can thread the yarn tail out the same spot where the other tail is. With the two tails, tie a tight double knot, trim off any excess yarn tails, then hide the knot. By now, the glue on the mouth should be dry too, so tie off the two ends from the mouth and hide the knot as well. And for the final touch, you can just squish it to shape it, and you have just finished your very own little ghost toy. Thank you so much for following along with this video. If you found this video helpful, please like this video and consider subscribing. I have a lot of beginner-friendly tutorials on my channel, so please go check them out. Bye-bye!